The rain pounded against the window like it was trying to break into my life. Each drop a reminder of the storm brewing inside me. I was 23, stuck in a small Ohio town. And my best friend Jake had just texted me, "Yo, Eli, crash at my place tonight. Got something to tell you." My heart did that stupid flip it always did when he messaged. A mix of hope and dread I'd spent years trying to bury. I'd known Jake since we were kids. Back when we'd race bikes down Maple Street and sneak beers from his dad's garage fridge. He was the kind of guy everyone loved: broad shoulders, easy grin, and a laugh that could pull you out of any funk. Straight as an arrow, though. Or so I thought. Me. I'd come out as gay at 18. And Jake had been cool about it, never once acting weird. But I'd been in love with him for years. A secret I guarded like a vault. Because losing him as a friend wasn't an option. That night, though, something in his text felt different, urgent. Almost heavy. I pulled up to his place. A modest 2-story house on the edge of town. The kind with peeling paint and a porch swing that creaked in the wind. The rain soaked through my hoodie as I jogged to the door, my sneakers squelching on the wet steps. Jake opened it before I could knock. His dark hair messy. His gray t-shirt clinging to his frame like he'd just thrown it on. "Dude, you're drenched," he said, tossing me a towel. His hazel eyes caught mine for a second longer than usual, and my stomach twisted. "Thanks," I mumbled, drying my hair, trying not to stare. His living room was a mess: pizza boxes, a half-empty beer bottle, a guitar leaning against the couch. It smelled like him, cedar cologne and something earthier, like the woods after rain. He flopped onto the couch, patting the spot next to him. "So, what's this big thing you gotta tell me?" I asked, keeping my voice light, even as my pulse raced. Jake leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. "It's complicated, Eli." His voice was low, almost a whisper, and I felt the air shift, like the moment before a lightning strike. "I've been thinking about something for a while, and I don't know how to say it without sounding like an idiot." My mind spun. Was he moving away? Did he know how I felt? I forced a laugh. "You're always an idiot, Jake. Just spit it out." He looked up, his eyes locking onto mine, and I swear my heart stopped. "I've been thinking about us," he said, the words hanging between us like a fragile thread. Like, what if things were different? What if I wasn't, straight? The room tilted. I couldn't breathe. Was this a joke? A test? My best friend, the guy I'd loved in silence for years, was sitting here questioning his entire identity and dragging me into it. I wanted to laugh, cry, run, all at once. Instead, I croaked. "What are you saying, Jake?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know, man. I feel something when I'm with you. Always have. I thought it was just, like, friendship. But lately," he trailed off, his face flushed. "I'm freaking out here. Eli, I need you to tell me I'm not crazy." My mouth went dry. This was everything I'd ever wanted to hear. But it terrified me. If I leaned into this, if I let myself hope, what happened when he changed his mind? Straight guys didn't just flip a switch. But his eyes were pleading, and I couldn't look away. "You're not crazy," I said softly, my voice barely steady. "But you gotta be sure, Jake. This isn't something you just try out." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. That's why I asked you to stay over." I need to figure this out. With you. He reached out, his hand brushing mine, and it was like a spark igniting a fire I'd spent years trying to smother. I didn't pull away. The rest of the night was a blur of quiet tension. We talked, really talked, about things we'd never touched before, me fears of being too much, his confusion about what he was feeling. We didn't kiss, didn't cross that line, but we sat closer than we ever had, his knee brushing mine, his voice soft and raw. By the time we crashed in his room, him on the bed and me on a sleeping bag on the floor, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with possibilities, each one scarier than the last. What if this was real? What if it wasn't? The next morning, sunlight streamed through his window, and Jake was already up, making coffee in the kitchen. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "You okay?" he asked, handing me a mug. His fingers lingered on mine. "Yeah," I lied, my heart pounding. "You?" He didn't answer, just gave me a small, nervous smile. And that's when I knew, whatever happened next, last night had changed everything. We weren't just friends anymore, but what we were. I had no idea, and that scared me more than anything. The days after that night felt like walking on a tightrope. Jake and I didn't talk about what he'd said, but it hung between us, heavy and unspoken, like a song stuck in your head you can't quite name. Every glance, every accidental brush of his arm against mine, sent my heart into overdrive, and I hated how much I wanted to believe he meant it. We were back at his place a week later, sprawled on his couch watching some dumb action movie neither of us cared about. The TV flickered, casting blue light across his face, and I caught myself staring at the way his jaw tightened when he laughed. "You're not even watching," he said, nudging me with his elbow, his grin playful but his eyes searching. "Caught me," I said, forcing a smirk. "Movie's trash anyway." But my chest ached. I wanted to ask him if he'd thought about what he said, if he was still figuring it out. But the words stuck in my throat. What if he'd already backed off? What if he was pretending it never happened? He turned the volume down, the sudden quiet making the room feel smaller. "Eli," he started, his voice softer now. "I've been thinking about what I said last week. About us." My stomach dropped. Here it was, the moment I'd been dreading and craving all at once. "I meant it," he continued, his eyes fixed on mine. "But I'm scared. Man, I don't know what this means for me. For us." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Jake, you don't have to have it all figured out. But you need to know what you're asking. This isn't just an experiment." My voice cracked, and I hated how vulnerable I sounded. I've been here before, liking someone who's not sure. It sucks. He winced, like I'd hit him. "I'm not trying to mess with you, Eli. I swear. It's just new. I've never felt this way about a guy. Hell, I've barely let myself think about it until now." He leaned closer, his knee pressing against mine, and I could smell that damn cedar cologne. "But when I'm with you, it feels right." My heart was a traitor, soaring at his words even as my brain screamed to slow down. "So what now?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "What do you want?" He hesitated, then reached for my hand, his fingers warm and tentative. "I want to try. With you. If you're okay with it." His thumb brushed over my knuckles, and I felt like I was falling. No ground in sight. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to pull him close, to kiss him and see where it led. But the other part, the part that had been burned before, wanted to run. Jake, if we do this, it's not just some fling for me. You get that, right? I know, he said, his voice firm. I'm not promising I've got it all together, but I'm in this. I want to be. His eyes were so earnest, so Jake, that I couldn't help but believe him, even if it terrified me. That night, we didn't kiss, but we stayed up talking until the sky turned gray, curled up on the couch under a shared blanket. He told me about the first time he wondered if he was into guys, a fleeting thought in high school he'd buried under years of dating girls. I told him about the guy in college who'd broken my heart, leaving me afraid to trust again. It was raw, messy, and real, and by the time we fell asleep, his head resting against my shoulder, I felt closer to him than ever. But the world outside his living room wasn't as kind. A few days later, we were grabbing burgers at Marty's Diner when some guys from Jake's old high school football team walked in. They spotted us, and I saw the shift in Jake's posture, the way he leaned away from me, his laugh louder, forced. Yo, Jake, still hanging with Eli. One of them, a guy named Derek, called out, his tone dripping with something I couldn't quite place. Yeah, man, Jake said, his voice tight. Just catching up. He didn't look at me, and it stung more than I wanted to admit. I knew he wasn't ready to be open. Not in this town where everyone knew everyone. But it still felt like a rejection. Later, in his car, I couldn't hold it in. You ashamed of me, Jake? I asked, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. No, he said quickly, his hand gripping the steering wheel. It's not you. It's them. This place. I'm not ready for everyone to know I'm questioning shit. Not yet. I nodded, but the hurt lingered. I get it, I said, even though I didn't. Not really. Just don't make me feel like a secret forever. Okay. He reached for my hand, squeezing it. I won't. I promise. But as we drove back to his place, the silence between us felt heavier than ever, and I wondered if I was setting myself up for heartbreak all over again. The next few weeks were a strange dance of closeness and caution. Jake and I spent almost every night together, sometimes at his place, sometimes at mine, a tiny apartment above a hardware store that smelled faintly of sawdust. We'd talk, laugh, share beers, and every so often, he'd let his guard down, a hand on my back, a lingering look that made my chest tight. But we hadn't crossed that line, hadn't kissed, and I could feel the tension building like a storm about to break. One night, we were at my place, sprawled on my thrift store couch, a half-eaten pizza between us. The TV was off, and the only sound was the hum of the fridge and the occasional car passing outside. Jake was quieter than usual, his fingers picking at the label on his beer bottle. You ever think about leaving this town? He asked suddenly, his eyes distant. All the time, I admitted. There's nothing here for me. Not really. I didn't say the rest that he was the only reason I'd stayed this long. He nodded, like he was turning something over in his mind. I've been thinking about it too. Somewhere bigger, where nobody knows us, where I wouldn't have to hide. His voice cracked on the last word, and my heart lurched. Hide what? I asked, even though I knew the answer. I needed to hear him say it. He set the bottle down, turning to face me. This. Us. Whatever we're doing. He took a deep breath, like he was steeling himself. Eli, I'm falling for you. And it's freaking me out. But I don't want to stop. The words hit me like a wave, pulling me under. I'd dreamed of hearing them, but now that they were real, I was terrified. "Jake, you sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Because once we go there, there's no going back." "I'm sure," he said, and before I could overthink it, he leaned in and kissed me. It was soft at first, hesitant, like he was testing the waters. But then it deepened, his hand cupping the back of my neck, and I was lost in this warmth. His taste, the way he pulled me closer like he'd been holding back for years. I kissed him back, my hands tangling in his shirt, and for the first time, I let myself believe this could be real. When we finally pulled apart, both of us breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "That was, wow," he whispered, a shaky laugh escaping him. I laughed too, but my mind was racing. This was everything I'd wanted, but it felt fragile, like a house of cards waiting for a breeze. The next day, reality came crashing in. We were walking through the park, not touching but close enough that our shoulders brushed, when we ran into Jake's ex-girlfriend, Sarah. She was all smiles until she noticed how close we were standing. "Hey, Jake," she said, her eyes flicking to me, then back to him. "Didn't know you two were this tight now?" Jake stiffened, his smile forced. "Just hanging out," he said, and I felt that familiar sting. Sarah raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it, but she let it go and walked away. I didn't say anything, but Jake could tell I was pissed. "I'm sorry," he said later, as we sat in his truck. I panicked. I didn't know what to say. "You could have said the truth," I snapped, hating how sharp my voice sounded. "Or at least not made me feel like I'm invisible." "I'm trying, Eli," he said, his voice raw. "This is all new to me. I don't know how to do this in front of everyone." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I know, but I can't keep doing this halfway. Jake, I need you to be all in, or I'm out." He reached for my hand, his grip tight. "I'm in. I just need time." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. This town, these people, they had a way of pulling you back, making you conform. I'd seen it happen before, and I wasn't sure I could survive it happening with Jake. That night, we lay in my bed, not touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. "I want to be better for you," he whispered into the dark. "I don't want to screw this up." "Then don't," I said, my voice soft but firm. "But you gotta choose. Jake, me or this town." He didn't answer, and the silence felt like a warning, a crack in the foundation of whatever we were building. Time didn't make things easier. If anything, it made them messier. Jake and I were falling deeper, our nights filled with stolen kisses and whispered promises. But the daylight brought complications. He was still figuring out how to be open, and I was trying not to push him too hard. But every dodged question or quick glance away in public chipped away at my patience. One evening, we were at a local bar, a dive called Rusty's, where the jukebox played the same 5 country songs on repeat. We'd agreed to keep things low-key, just 2 friends grabbing a drink. But I could feel Jake's tension every time someone looked our way. Halfway through our beers, a guy from Jake's construction crew, Mike, slid into our booth, his grin too wide. "Jake, my man, you've been dodging us lately," he said, clapping Jake on the shoulder. "Too busy with your bestie here." Jake laughed, but it was strained. "Nah, just work's been crazy." He didn't look at me, and I felt like I was shrinking, like I was just some guy he knew instead of the person he'd kissed breathless the night before. Mike's eyes flicked to me, and there was something sharp in them, like he'd heard rumors. Right. Well, don't forget us little people when you're off doing whatever. He smirked and left, but the air felt heavier, like he'd left a bomb ticking under the table. Why do you do that? I asked once Mike was gone, my voice low but sharp. You act like I'm nobody when your buddies show up. Jake sighed, rubbing his face. I'm not ashamed of you, Eli. I'm just not ready for everyone to know. This town talks. You know that. If word gets out, my job, my family, it's gonna be a mess. And what about me? I shot back, my chest tight. You think it's easy for me, watching you pretend we're nothing. I've been out for years. Jake, I've taken the hits. You don't get to use this town as an excuse forever. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. I'm trying. Okay. I just need a little more time. But time was starting to feel like a luxury I didn't have. Every half step forward came with a step back, and I was exhausted. The breaking point came a week later at a town fair, the kind with cotton candy and rigged carnival games. Jake and I went together, not as a couple, but not quite as friends either. We were laughing, sharing a bag of popcorn, when his mom spotted us. Mrs. Carter was all smiles, her southern drawl warm as she hugged me. Eli, you keeping my boy out of trouble? She teased. Trying, I said, grinning. But I caught Jake's nervous glance when she asked us to join her and some family friends for dinner. Jake hesitated, then said, Nah, we're good, Ma. Just gonna wander. She didn't push, but I saw the question in her eyes. And it hit me, Jake wasn't just hiding from the town. He was hiding from his family too. Later, as we sat on a bench away from the crowd, I couldn't hold it in. You're never gonna tell them, are you? I asked, my voice flat. Your mom, your dad, your creery gonna keep me in this great area forever. That's not fair, he said, his jaw tight. I'm working up to it. You don't know what it's like. Eli, my dad is old school. He'll lose it. And what about me? I said, my voice rising. I'm out here, living my truth, while you're still deciding if I'm worth the risk. I can't do this halfway. Jake, I won't. He grabbed my hand, his grip desperate. You're worth it. I need you to wait. Please. His eyes were wet, and it broke something in me. But I couldn't keep bending. I've been waiting, I said, pulling my hand away. I don't know how much longer I can. I walked away, leaving him on that bench, the fair's lights blurring through the tears I wouldn't let fall. I didn't know if I was walking away for good, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the shadows of his fear. The weeks that followed were a blur of silence. Jake texted a few times. Short messages like, can we talk? Or I miss you. But I didn't respond. I needed space to figure out if I could keep loving someone who wasn't ready to love me back. Not fully. My apartment felt emptier without him. But I filled the quiet with music, work, anything to keep my mind off the ache in my chest. One night, I was at a coffee shop, sketching in a notebook to clear my head, when Sarah, Jake's ex, walked in. She spotted me and slid into the seat across from me, her expression unreadable. Heard you and Jake had a fight, she said. No preamble. I tensed, closing my notebook. Who told you that? Small town. Eli. People talk. She leaned forward, her voice low. Look, I don't know what's going on with you two, but I've known Jake forever. He's a good guy, but he's scared. Always has been when it comes to big changes. I didn't want to hear it, but I couldn't stop her. He's not scared, I said, my voice sharp. He's ashamed. There's a difference. She shook her head. You're wrong. He's not ashamed of you. He's ashamed of himself for not being braver. Give him a chance. Eli. He's trying. Even if he's screwing it up. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her, but the hurt was still raw. Why do you care? I asked. She shrugged, a sad smile on her face. Because I loved him once too. And I know what it's like to want him to be something he's not ready to be. She left me with that. And I sat there, staring at my coffee, wondering if I'd been too hard on him. A few days later, Jake showed up at my apartment, unannounced. He looked like hell, dark circles under his eyes. His hair a mess. I told my mom. He said before I could speak. About us. About me. My heart stopped. What? I told her I don't know what I am yet. Bi? Maybe. But I told her I love you. His voice broke, and he looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him upright. She didn't take it great, but she didn't kick me out. That's something. Right. I stared at him, my mind reeling. You told her you love me. Yeah, he said, stepping closer. Because I do. And I'm done hiding it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I want to do this right. With you. I wanted to believe him, but fear held me back. What about your dad? Your job? You ready for all that? He swallowed hard. I don't know, but I'm ready to try. For you. He reached for me. And this time, I didn't pull away. His arms around me felt like home. But I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. This was just the start. And the road ahead was going to be rough. We spent the night talking. Really talking. About what this meant for us. He told me about his mom's reaction shock. Tears. But a promise to try to understand. I told him about my fears. How I'd been burned before. How much it hurt to feel like a secret. By morning, we were exhausted but hopeful, tangled together on my couch, his head on my chest. For the first time, I felt like we might actually make it. Jake's confession to his mom was a turning point, but it didn't magically fix everything. The town still felt like a minefield. And while Jake was trying to be open, I could see the weight of it on him. He'd flinch when someone gave us a look, hesitate before taking my hand in public. I didn't push him, but it hurt. Knowing he was still fighting an internal battle I couldn't help him win. One afternoon, we were at the hardware store below my apartment, picking up paint for a project Jake was working on. The clerk, an older guy named Tom who'd known us since we were kids, raised an eyebrow when Jake put his arm around my shoulders. You two seem close these days, he said, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. Jake didn't pull away, but I felt him tense. Yeah, we are, he said, his voice steady but clipped. Tom just nodded and rang us up, but the interaction left a sour taste. On the way out, Jake muttered, I hate this. Everyone's watching us. Then let them watch, I said, more sharply than I meant. You said you were done hiding. I am. He snapped, then softened. I'm trying. Eli. It's just hard. I nodded, but the frustration lingered. I wanted to be patient, but I was tired of feeling like we were sneaking around in our own lives. Things got worse when Jake's dad found out. Mr. Carter was a gruff, no-nonsense guy who'd always been proud of Jake's all-American image. Jake told me about the fight they had, shouting accusations, his dad throwing around words like phase and disappointment. Jake held his ground, but it shook him. When he showed up at my place that night, he was quiet, his eyes red. He said, "I'm throwing my life away." He whispered, his voice breaking. "For you." I felt like I'd been punched. "Do you think he's right?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "No," Jake said fiercely, grabbing my hands. "You're the best thing in my life. But he's my dad. Eli. I don't know how to fix this." I pulled him into a hug, and we stayed like that for a long time, the weight of his words pressing down on us. The next day, we decided to get out of town for a bit, just the two of us. We drove to Columbus, a couple hours away, where nobody knew us. It was like a weight lifted. Jake held my hand as we walked through the city, laughed louder, kissed me in a quiet coffee shop without looking over his shoulder. For the first time, I saw what we could be without the town's shadow hanging over us. But reality waited back home. When we returned, Jake's dad was at his house, and the conversation was brutal. I wasn't there, but Jake told me everything: how his dad demanded he fix himself, how he threatened to cut him off. Jake stood his ground, but it cost him. When he showed up at my place after, he looked broken. "I don't know if I can stay here," he said, his voice hollow. "Not with him like this." "Then let's go," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "Let's leave. Start over somewhere else. Together." It was a reckless idea, but in that moment, I meant it. I was done with this town, done with hiding, done with watching Jake tear himself apart. He looked at me, his eyes searching. "You'd do that? For me?" "For us," I corrected, my heart pounding. "But only if you're all in, Jake. No more halfway." He didn't answer right away, but the way he kissed me, fierce and desperate, felt like a promise. I just hoped it was one he could keep. The idea of leaving town took root, growing stronger with every passing day. Jake and I started talking about it seriously: where we'd go, what we'd do. Seattle, maybe, or Portland. Somewhere progressive where we could be ourselves without looking over our shoulders. It felt like a lifeline, a chance to escape the suffocating weight of our small town. But dreams are one thing, reality is another. Jake's job was the first hurdle. He worked construction, a good gig for a guy his age. But coming out at work wasn't going smoothly. His crew was tight-knit, the kind of guys who tossed around slurs like they were nothing. Jake started getting sidelined: fewer shifts, colder shoulders. One day, he came home with a busted lip, saying he'd handled it when some guy made a comment about us. He wouldn't give me details, but the look in his eyes told me enough. "I can't keep doing this," he said, his voice raw. "Not here." I was working as a freelance graphic designer, so I could go anywhere with an internet connection. But Jake didn't have that flexibility. We started saving every penny, cutting corners, planning for a move. It was exhilarating and terrifying, like planning a jailbreak. But the more we planned, the more I saw Jake's resolve harden. He was done letting this town define him. His mom was another story. She'd come around a little, inviting us over for dinner one night. It was awkward: her smiles were forced, and she avoided mentioning what we were to each other, but it was a start. "I just want you to be happy," she told Jake, her voice trembling. "But it's hard for me." Jake squeezed her hand, and I saw the love between them, strained but still there. It gave me hope, but it also reminded me how much he was risking. The town wasn't done with us, though. Rumors spread like wildfire, and soon, we couldn't go anywhere without whispers or stares. One night at Rusty's, a group of guys from Jake's crew cornered us in the parking lot. "What's this I hear about you two?" One of them, a big guy named Paul, sneered. "You switched teams." Jake. Jake stepped in front of me, his fists clenched. "Back off, Paul. This isn't your business." Paul laughed, but it was ugly. "It is when you're making us look bad." He shoved Jake, and before I could think, I was between them, pushing Paul back. "Leave him alone," I said, my voice shaking but firm. Things didn't escalate, but it was a wake-up call. We couldn't stay here. Not like this. That night, Jake looked at me, his face bruised but determined. "We're getting out," he said. "Soon." I nodded, my heart swelling with pride and fear. He was choosing me, choosing us, but the cost was higher than I'd imagined. We set a date, 3 months to save enough to move. Every night, we'd lie in my bed, dreaming aloud about our new life, coffee shops we'd try, apartments we'd rent, the freedom to just be. But doubt crept in. What if Jake changed his mind? What if the world outside wasn't as kind as we hoped? I pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the way his hand felt in mine, the way his laugh made everything okay. 3 months later, we were packed and ready. Jake had quit his job, and I'd lined up some remote clients. We'd chosen Seatley, a city big enough to get lost in, welcoming enough to feel safe. The night before we left, we sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by boxes, a bottle of cheap wine between us. "You nervous?" I asked, my voice soft. "Terrified," Jake admitted, but he was smiling. "But I'm more excited than scared. For the first time, I feel like I'm doing something right." He leaned over, kissing me, and it was different this time, sure. Steady, like he'd finally made peace with who he was. Leaving wasn't easy. Jake's mom hugged him tight, tears in her eyes, and promised to visit. His dad didn't show up to say goodbye, and I saw the pain in Jake's eyes. But he didn't let it break him. "He'll come around," he said, more to himself than to me. I hoped he was right. The drive to Seattle was long, filled with bad gas station coffee and playlists we argued over. Somewhere in Montana, Jake pulled over at a rest stop, the stars bright above us. "I love you," he said, out of nowhere, his voice clear and certain. I should have said it sooner. I laughed, tears stinging my eyes. "I love you too, you idiot." We kissed under that endless sky, and for the first time, I felt like we were free, not just from the town, but from the fear that had held us back. Seattle wasn't perfect. The rent was brutal, and we fought over dumb things like whose turn it was to do dishes. But we were together, openly, unapologetically. Jake got a job at a construction firm that didn't care who he loved, and I built my design business. We made friends, found our favorite coffee shop, held hands in public without a second thought. The town we'd left behind faded, a memory we didn't need anymore. One night, a year later, we were at a bar in Capitol Hill, surrounded by people who didn't bat an eye at two guys in love. Jake raised his glass, his eyes soft. "To us," he said, "to going off script." I clinked my glass against his, my heart full. "To us," I echoed. We'd taken a chance, risked everything, and found something better than I'd ever dreamed. It wasn't a fairy tale, it was real. Messy. And ours.